Good afternoon, everyone. It is Sunday, September the 6th, 2020. It is currently 5:17 p.m. Central Time. I'm coming to you live from Victory Baptist Church, located here in Ovalo, Texas. I'm sitting here in the sanctuary of the church. I'm here for the Sunday evening service, but, well, something interesting happened, so I thought I would turn on the microphone right now and share it with you. Maybe you'll find this to be interesting. Maybe you will not. But I thought it was interesting, so guess what? If I thought it was interesting, well, then you just have to acknowledge that it's interesting, okay? Even if you don't believe that it is, you have to say that it is. You have to give me, you have to confirm that what I think is right, okay? Maybe is that, okay, whatever. The point is, I think this is interesting, so stay with me. If you've ever opened a Bible, and if you ever read the Old Testament book of Leviticus, you came across this section of Scripture, all right? Leviticus chapter 19, verse 9. This is the Old Testament book of Leviticus. Leviticus chapter 19, verse 9. And when you reap the harvest of your land, thou shalt not wholly reap the corners of thy field, neither shalt thou gather the gleanings of thy harvest. And thou shalt not glean thy vineyard, neither shalt thou gather every grape of thy vineyard. Thou shalt leave them for the poor and stranger. I am the Lord your God. So, hey, Israel, this is obviously specific rules for Israel. Hey, when you reap the harvest of your land, don't reap it all. Don't reap it all. Okay. You shall not wholly reap the corners of thy field, neither shalt thou gather the gleanings of thy harvest. In other words, you're not going to harvest all of it. You're going to leave some things there. When you glean the vineyard, you're not going to gather every grape of the vineyard, but you're going to leave things behind for the poor and the stranger. And why are you going to do this? Because God says, I am the Lord your God. I am the Lord your God, and this is what I'm telling you to do. There are people in your midst who are in need. There are people around you who are in need. There are the poor and there are strangers, people who are not part of Israel, right? Strangers that are there. They have needs. You're going to leave. You're going to sacrifice some of your things for their benefit. This is called the practice of gleaning. All right. Now, it even mentions the word there in Leviticus chapter 19, neither shalt thou gather the gleanings of thy harvest. It even mentions the word gleanings. Now, if you look up, I have a Bible dictionary right here. I have the Nelson's New Illustrated Bible Dictionary. If you look up the word gleaning, you will find this entry. It's very short. Gleaning, the process of gathering grain or other produce left in the fields by the reapers. All right. The Old Testament law required that property owners leave the gleanings of their produce in the fields so they might be gathered by the poor and the stranger. And then they offer all the scriptures to do it. It was a biblical practice. Israel, you're going to leave some things behind so that the other people could come and glean. They could glean from it. They could take from it to sustain themselves, to give themselves food. The poor and the stranger. That is a biblical idea. That is a biblical model. So, to my surprise, I'm sitting here. I was working on Genesis chapter 6, and I got a notification on my iPad. Boom. There's a podcast episode available from PBS News. And one of their news stories was about gleanings. And I'm like, wait, what? And then I saw another notification, right? Hey, a story about gleaning. And I'm like, wait, why am I getting podcast notifications from secular news agencies on gleaning in 2020? Like, well, what is going on? So I'm like, okay, I got to stop working on Genesis 6. I got to go find this. So I grabbed the laptop, started doing some searching. I'm like, oh, here's the news story. It's about 6 minutes long. And it appears that the old practice of gleaning, as outlined by God in the Bible, right, for Israel, well, it seems that we're returning to that practice to feed people during the pandemic. I thought this was interesting, so I'm going to play the audio for you. This comes to us from PBS News. I'll make a commentary about it, but I want you to hear it. Now, the audio is a little low. I've boosted it as loud as I can with the software that I have, so you may have to turn up the volume. But here you go. This is from PBS News. I got the notification, 15 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago, and I was like, okay, let me, and then I got the second notification. So maybe the first one was 20 minutes ago. The second one was 15 minutes ago. And I'm like, I got to find this. And then I looked up the Leviticus passage. I was pretty familiar with it. And then I grabbed the Bible dictionary and I'm like, okay, I'm going to let everyone think about this. So here's a biblical practice, gleaning. All right. I want you to keep this in mind. And we're returned to it in some way. Let's find out exactly how we return to it, what's going on, how this is happening. What should we think about it? All right. Here we go.
Food insecurity in the United States skyrocketed when the COVID-19 pandemic began almost 6 months ago. It's left emergency food distributors stretched to provide enough to those in need. To help fill this gap, organizations around the country have doubled down on an age-old practice of getting excess crops from farms to families in need. On the third Friday of every month, St. Mary's Outreach in Newburgh, New York, opens its doors. After a quick COVID symptom screen and mask check, people wind their way around the outside of this gym, following tape on the floor to try to remain 6 feet apart. They find canned food and staples like rice, but the highlight for many is the more than a dozen different types of fresh produce.
I'm so amazed that they have an abundance of vegetables like this.
Look at the size of this thing. Yeah.
It's a great privilege to come here and get this here, and I'm not ashamed of it because I'm going to go home and I'm going to eat very good.
Marietta Allen is the director of St. Mary's Outreach.
We have a community, it's very, very poor, and I try to include fresh stuff every month. Makes a big, big difference, and the families are very appreciative too, so it's a good thing.
Even before the pandemic, this part of Newburgh, a city 70 miles north of New York City, was categorized as a food desert according to federal data, meaning there's reduced access to fresh, affordable fruits and vegetables. But at this food bank, much of this produce could just as easily be found at upscale farmers markets in wealthy enclaves of places like New York City. In fact, less than 48 hours earlier, much of it was.
No, we can do cash or credit.
Getting this produce from here to emergency food distributors is the job of a complex regional distribution network that gleans or takes excess food from farmers and gets it to the needy. Gleaning is a custom that dates back thousands of years, even described in the book of Ruth in the Bible. But it's become more challenging during the pandemic, just as demand for emergency food is surging.
We've got pink Berkeley tie-dye.
Kevin Smith is the owner of Sycamore Farms, and he brings produce to this New York City green market in Union Square twice a week. It never closed during the COVID-19 shutdown.
So this farmer's market, especially this year, has been a great sense of community for myself, the people that shop here, and for products. It's been really a saving grace for me and my family.
At the end of the day, anything that's not sold is carefully reloaded onto his refrigerated truck and brought back to his 237-acre farm about 70 miles northwest of New York City. Early the next morning, a team from Cornell Cooperative Extension, Orange County, is sifting through what's left.
I'll take some stuff and go into Newburgh.
Stiles Najak runs Cornell Extension's Gleaning program.
We move close to 400,000 pounds of food, fresh from the farm, directly to soup kitchens and food pantries so that they don't have to store it every year. And yeah, we move food. We move food as quickly as we need to make sure that it is eaten while fresh.
Gleaning Sycamore's market truck means going through produce carefully to make sure only fruits and vegetables that are still good are taken. In the middle of tomato season, it's a time-consuming process.
When gleaning, you wind up getting a wide variety of quality. This is amazing. This is what you want. You want food that has been grown and cared for and just didn't find a home from the market. We'll give it a good home.
All told, nearly 6,000 pounds of produce, including tomatoes, corn, peppers, beans, and eggplants, are taken from Sycamore's truck and loaded onto Cornell Extension's refrigerated truck, ready to be taken to distribution points across the region. This program, which is funded by state and local grants as well as donations, is one of nearly 200 gleaning programs in North America, according to the Association of Gleaning Organizations. The growth of gleaning programs, like Cornell Extensions, has partly been driven by adding financial incentives for farmers. Since 2018, New York State farms can receive a tax credit of up to $5,000. That's in addition to getting a break on their federal taxes for donating crops to nonprofits.
This could be the difference between whether or not, they have a big bill to pay or a small bill to pay at the end of the year.
In addition to the tax incentives, Kevin Smith says having a place to donate actually helps him maintain the value of his produce at the green market.
We used to do it about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We started having discount sales. We created a culture of late-in-the-day shoppers who were looking only for deals. So when I started working with Styles, I no longer felt the pressure of taking home this extra produce as a burden. I would much rather donate than discount my rates here where I have an established market.
For the last decade, Sycamore has donated, on average, about 65,000 pounds of produce each year. And it's not alone. As the pandemic increases food insecurity, Cornell Extension's gleaning program has been busier than ever.
Everybody is growing fresh produce for us to donate. I would say we've easily doubled the amount of food that we're moving on a weekly basis.
But even as donations increase, the pandemic adds new challenges to how Stiles and her team operate. In other years, excess crops like these tomatoes, which were passed over by pickers for not being perfect, might have been collected by volunteers for donation, but not this year.
I would like to get volunteers into the field. However, we do have to take into consideration social distancing, masks. This year, COVID has kind of slowed us down in that matter.
Back in Newburgh, about 20 miles from Sycamore Farm, gleaned tomatoes, corn, beans, eggplant, nectarines, and peaches are delivered to St. Mary's Outreach. The next morning, volunteers put the produce into grabbable plastic bags before they are distributed to those in need. This food pantry has been here for almost a decade, but this will be its last time operating in this 3,500 square foot gym. Because of COVID-19, a Head Start program for kids needs this space for social distancing. With increased demand for emergency food, Marietta Allen says she's looking for a new space.
I'm hoping we can find something, but wherever we are, we give away as much as we can.
Now, it's awesome that there's a news story talking about gleaning. I like the way they said that. It's even found in the book of Ruth. Okay, well, actually, it's found it's first mentioned in the book of Leviticus, okay, but I'm not expecting the news to get it all right. But it's just funny how it's even mentioned can you believe that even the Bible mentions gleaning? I mean, I'm shocked. How did the people who wrote the Bible even know about gleaning? It's like, I just found it funny the way they say it. It's even found in the book of Ruth. Okay, no, it starts in Leviticus, and it was given by God as a law. This is what you do. Let me read it to you again. Leviticus chapter 19, verse 9. And when you reap the harvest of your land, thou shalt not wholly reap the corners of thy field, neither shalt thou gather the gleanings of thy harvest. And thou shalt not glean thy vineyard, neither shalt thou gather every grape of thy vineyard. Thou shalt leave them for the poor and stranger. I am the Lord your God. I want you to know, when it came to God and Israel, hey, that stranger, you take care of the stranger too. You don't check their green card. You don't worry about deporting them. You don't build a wall around your field. No, you take care of the stranger and you take care of the poor. I am the Lord your God. Israel was a stranger in the land, and God wanted Israel to take care of the strangers in the land. That's very important. Now, again, that's Israel. I'm just trying to say that this is a mindset Christians are supposed to have of caring for people, loving for people, providing for people. And it was a biblical practice. And how we can apply that how can we apply that mindset? I think that's the best way to put it. Not really the practice, but the mindset. I was going to say practice, then I got ready to say mindset, and then I just stopped because the practice here is a law for Israel, and no question about it. And I'm not trying to grab a law from Israel and then throw it on us. What I'm trying to say is there's a mindset there that trying to care for the people. But I want you to understand, and the book of Leviticus, this is very important. God tells them to do it. He's not saying you do this to get a tax break. You're not doing this so you don't have to reduce your prices at the end of the day to try to get rid of your product. No. So as a result, I mean, if you think about the motivations in the news story, they get a tax break. And then the guy's like, hey, I used to have to reduce the prices at the end of the day so I didn't have to carry all this product back. But now I don't. I don't have to reduce the prices because I can take the product back, give it to this charity, and then I get the tax break. Okay, yeah. So yeah, those are financial motivations for allowing for gleaning. In the Old Testament, it wasn't. No, you just leave the product for the poor. You're not getting a tax break. You're not getting a kickback. You're not going to be able to sell. You're not saving yourself for having to discount your food. No, you go out and glean and then you leave. Or you go out to harvest and then you allow the other to be gleaned by those who are poor and strangers in the land. So that means they had to sacrifice to care for other people. Christianity is about it's a sacrificial mindset. Jesus Christ laid down his life for me. He sacrificed himself as my substitute to die for me. We are to lay down our life in service to him, like we die to ourselves to serve him. And we are to have a sacrificial mindset in serving others, sacrifice in giving for the work of God. There's a sacrificial mindset to give, to help. And we have to try to maintain that. We can get so caught up in a political way of thinking that we're looking at everything from a political perspective. We have to first maintain a biblical perspective. Sacrificial giving for the poor, for the stranger, sacrificial giving for the furtherance of God's kingdom, for the support of the church, for ministries, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I just thought it was interesting that they've returned to this ancient practice. Now, this ancient practice has been changed a little bit now. Now you do so because, hey, I don't need to reduce my prices at the end of the day. I don't have to do that anymore. Why? Because I can take all the leftover product, go give it to a charity, and you get a tax deduction. So, which is perfectly fine. I'm not condemning it. I'm just saying the biblical mindset is very, very different. And we need to try to find a way to make that biblical mindset a part of my life, a part of your life, a part of your church, a part of my church. And I've always said in my church that we have to be willing to give to those who need it. We do our best too. And sometimes we can. I mean, we're a small church. Sometimes we've been taken very much advantage. People have taken advantage of us. But we don't give to get. We don't give to ensure that, maybe they'll come to a church service. No, we just give to try to help whenever we can, however we can. That needs to maintain our mindset and be a part of our mindset always in the Christian church. So I thought that was interesting. I wanted to share it with you. Hopefully you think it was interesting as well. You can email me your thoughts about gleaning, the biblical practice of gleaning, how gleaning is being done there, and what we can learn from that principle. You can email me your thoughts at newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. All right, thanks for listening. Everyone have a great day. God bless.